Welcome to Cybersecurity Growth, a show for aspiring and existing cybersecurity leaders. I'm your co-host, Sean Valley, Managing Director and CISO of Cybersecurity Growth. I'm also a musician here on Twitch and elsewhere under the name Music by SV, but more on that later. Welcome to episode number 21, My Hacker Summer Camp Recap. And hello to my co-host, Garrett Gross. Hello, Garrett.
Well, hello, Sean. How are you?
It's August. It is the first time we've been able to say that on the show this month, that it's August. The last time we got together was July.
That's right.
So here we are. I think a couple things to note based on the title of this week's show is we made a post on the social networks that we were going to do a live show from Black Hat USA 2024, and people celebrated, and we celebrated. Except Black Hat came and went, and we did not do a live show. So maybe we'll talk about that as we get into things today.
Yeah, we sure can.
But I'm doing very well, Garrett. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be back in the studio with you, and to kick off August.
Likewise.
All right, let's get into a couple things here. First thing we want to touch base on today is to thank some of our new followers who have joined since the last time we got together. If I'm looking over here at my screen, we have a bunch of new followers from Twitch and from YouTube, but we'll focus on the Twitch names because I have them in front of me. So thank you to Cyber from Fire for the follow. Thank you to the DP Mad or DPM Ad. Thank you for the follow. Shellwiz 1337. Thank you. DX Stifler 92. Yes, thank you for that follow. Demon Slayer 8312, thanks for that follow. T Chris 38, thank you. And then finally, VKVN Tan. Vicken Tan. Thanks for the follow. Those are our Twitch followers. Thank you guys so much for that. I was looking over on YouTube today as well, and we are at something like 250 followers on YouTube, Garrett.
Wow.
One, thank you for those of you who are joining us live on Twitch when we record this show, unfiltered, unedited. And then thank you for those who watch the beautifully processed, formatted, perfected version of the show on YouTube. Some of you who watch the YouTube show would be scratching your head right now going, wait, this is the finished product? What does the raw one look like?
Beautifully produced? Hey, it's the best we can do. You know?
This is what we got on our big budget.
That's right.
Before we get into today's agenda, we like to start every show as if we were walking on a red carpet of an event.
That's
and
right.
So since today's show is called My Hacker Summer Camp Recap, before I mention our next section, the whole focus and purpose of today's show is to talk about this massive week or weeks of events that occur at the very end of July, the very beginning of August, every year in Las Vegas, USA. Many people call this Hacker Summer Camp. It's made up of a whole bunch of cybersecurity and related conferences. And so this is what today's show is all about, talking about the events that just occurred over the last few weeks in Las Vegas. Both Garrett and I attended some of the events that were there. And so we're going to kick things off today, pretending like we are on the red carpet, entering DEF CON. I don't know if you would call it what would that carpet probably
like
look
a black carpet?
Yeah, black carpet entering DEF CON. Maybe a little like stained. I don't know. It's definitely smelly. It's probably not that fresh.
Actually, the carpet would more be like a lot of confusing patterns that are directing you to go sit down into the slot machine. That would actually be the carpet
just
that we
follow the patterns over here. I hear something ringing 20 feet over this way. Maybe I should follow that ringing noise.
Which that could be a whole topic sometime, is like the psychology behind that, because that whole security inside a casino and stuff, we've got friends that work in those teams, and that's an interesting topic in and of itself. But
so anyways,
not enough time to get to that today.
The beginning of our show is we're walking down. Garrett and I, famous film stars, we're walking down the red carpet of a premiere, and we get stopped by the paparazzi, and they ask, who are you wearing? And so, Garrett, I'm going to start with you today. I'm going to pass this over to you. Garrett, I'd like to know, and all of your fans would like to know, Garrett, who are you wearing today?
Oh, well, yeah. Well, of course. Well, so today I'm wearing a shirt from the Red Team Village,
That's
which
DEF CON?
That's a DEF CON,
Yeah.
DEF CON Village. So Red Team refers to, the offensive side of security. It's kind of a red team, blue team type thing, blue team being a defensive. And it really refers to exercises that you would set up, red team versus blue team to kind of see how good your defenses are against, an onslaught of attacks. So Red Team Village is a village. So we have villages within DEF CON, which are just kind of groups of people that put on talks and contests and giveaways and capture the flags and stuff like that. Red Team Village is one of the preeminent villages. I don't know how long it's been going on, but it's going on for a while now. And while I did not get to visit the village, we'll get into that here in a minute. I did get their shirt, which is a super cool, you know, guy looks like I don't know, cyber devil
Yeah, I'm trying
or
to figure out, like,
something.
I mean, we got like a Transformer, a Voltron.
Yeah,
What do we got
yeah,
there this year, guy?
yeah, something like that, like a cyber devil, but behind that keyboard. And
It's fun because these are the new shirts. Like, just you just got this shirt within the last couple weeks, so you probably haven't even had a chance to dig into, like, what is this and what's on here.
I haven't even looked at it, to be quite honest. I just pulled
Grabbed
it
it.
out of the drawer. I mean, we're lucky it got laundered, so
Yeah,
so yeah, that's what I'm wearing.
nice. Do you have something?
Um,
You get some ice around your neck there. What do you got there?
oh yeah, I didn't even think you'd ask. So this is this year's DEF CON badge.
Whoa!
They're always different, and they kind of alternate every other year between an electronic badge like this and then a non, excuse all the noise, a non-electronic badge
Whoa!
like this one.
Wow! They're amazing looking. Like, that's not a badge. That's a
No.
Like, it looks to me,
Well,
for those of you who don't have the video in front of you who are listening, it looks to me like a Hello Kitty Tamagotchi Game Boy. That's what it
that's
looks
exactly
like.
right. And this one actually is a role-playing game. It's an RPG where you go through and you find QR codes to complete your quests. And it's a whole, I don't think mine is charged anymore because I played the crap out of it during the conference
Oh,
when I
very
was in
cool.
my hotel room. But yeah, and the thing that's significant about this one is I love to brag. This is an artist version badge, which not a lot of people get a hold of this one.
Like,
This requires that you
painting artists.
no, this requires that, well, actually, they might give them out to people who contribute actual, visual art, but I got mine because I contributed a song to the DEF CON soundtrack
Oh, hey, we should
this year.
put a link to that in the show notes.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
it's I think, doesn't the soundtrack exist like on SoundCloud or something like that?
It's on Bandcamp.
Bandcamp, so we
Yep.
can buy it. We can buy it. Is that what we're saying?
It's free to download, but you can of course donate.
Nice. That's so cool.
And all of the proceeds go to the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So it's not like a money grab where the money goes to me. I get nothing other than free admission to DEF CON and this cool badge.
That is very well. Hey, one, congrats for getting on the soundtrack as an
Thank
artist.
you.
That is very
Thank you.
cool. Congrats on the very cool Hello Kitty Tamagotchi looking badge.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
That is very cool. And if anyone doesn't know, EFF does a whole lot of good for us and the industry
That's
and
right.
those who don't have funds to take care of themselves in the cyberspace. So it's a fantastic organization.
Fight against a lot of, privacy infringement and stuff by you know who. And we have a ton of other badges that we're going to get into
Yeah.
and talk about and kind of why they differ and what they look like and stuff like that. But before we get to that, Sean,
Hmm.
the people want to know, what are you wearing?
Well, today, I think you went from an exciting, but again, fresh. This one's fresh, right off the press. I'm wearing a shirt, it says on the sleeve here, Akamai Security. So if you're familiar, Akamai does a lot in the web security space. You got a lot of web application tools, web security tools. So today, the fresh shirt says, hold on, I got to move something out of the way. Everything starts with an app.
Ah,
And the little pictures on the bottom makes me hungry because it's got some onion rings and some ketchup. It's got a little caprese salad. It's got maybe a little tofu cubes and sauce, and then maybe some chips and salsa or chips and guac in there.
yeah, yeah.
When I saw this silly shirt at Black Hat this year, I was like, oh, I liked their booth because their booth kind of had this like almost like food theme, and I liked the color theme to it.
Oh, that's
And of
so
course,
cool.
the play on the word app. Everything starts with an app because they're really focused. Akamai's been focused a lot over the last 10, 15 years around web application security and DDoS protection for web applications. So I thought it was a cool shirt.
As you should.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was a cool shirt. And then I'm also, since I investigated badges, my badge is not very exciting, but I went to Black Hat this year, and I'm going to try to not give away whatever the QR code is. But here's my Black Hat USA 2024 badge around my neck here. So there's my ice for today.
Very nice.
And then I think I had something clipped out here because I stopped at the CrowdStrike booth and got a cool little toy they were giving away. So they clipped my badge, so I didn't go back in line and get 2 or 3 or 4 CrowdStrike toys.
Crafty.
Yeah.
Were they giving away like free blue screens of death?
No, they did that the week earlier. They did
Right. That was the gift they gave out before that.
That was the pre-show. you get a blue screen of death, and you get a, you know, 5.8 million if you get a blue screen.
We're gonna brick all of your machines. Yeah.
Yes. Happy Black
That would have been
Hat.
funny actually if they handed out bricks. That would have been even funnier.
Just a brick. That's it. Now they're little toys. I don't think. Oh, I do have it. I do. Since we're here, and I just mentioned it, this was, I think it's this cool little toy, Aquatic Panda, I think is the name. Yeah, it says Stop Aquatic Panda. So y'all can Google it. Aquatic Panda is a threat actor, an adversary group. And so Black Hat created a bunch of action figures based off of known adversary groups. And they were giving them out. So depending on, when you stop by the booth, you could get one of their little freestanding action figures.
So they've stepped up their game. I got one of those last year, and it didn't have a stand. It wasn't as like shiny and cool. I mean, it's back there in the wall of crap somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's cool.
So hey kids, it's just something to keep in mind. You too could be a nation state threat actor and get such notoriety that CrowdStrike will make an action figure for your crimes as a thanks for your crimes.
I mean, really, I hadn't thought about it that way, but that is kind of a motivation for our young threat actors to gain some more notoriety.
I mean, for the people who think they have good OPSEC and they realize down the road maybe they didn't, when they're like, they're creating their own TikToks and going, guys, look, that's me.
I am Aquatic Panda.
Yeah, oh my God. Funny. Yeah. Anyways, so that's who I'm wearing today. Let me go through our agenda today, so folks know. So we usually actually have quite a big agenda that we cover, but we're gonna have I'd say a limited agenda for today because we're going to
be able to go deep.
We're going to go deep. We're just going to focus on Hacker Summer Camp and how we experienced it. And some of the cool takeaways we had from it. So as some of those who know the names of our rundown and our agendas, we're really going to focus today just on our hot topic, and our hot topic being my Hacker Summer Camp recap. So welcome. Let's go deep onto this for a little bit, because that's where Garrett and I just were a few weeks ago. We had intended to do this live from Las Vegas, and I'll pretend and say, but due to technical difficulties, we weren't able to. But the truth is, we just got so busy, we couldn't find an hour to sit in a room together and shoot the breeze. So, that's part of the reality.
I will say next year, and possibly even mid-year, if we both go to RSA, we should intentionally schedule a half day to do that. I think that would be a good idea, because I think our big misstep here is like, we'll do it live. We'll just meet up, in our free time during the Hacker Summer Camp. We'll just meet up and we'll do our thing, which I think that caused us to not have time to do that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened.
So if you don't mind, Sean, I'll start out with just a broad overview of what Hacker Summer Camp is, the cons that it comprises, and then you and I can go and dig into each one of the cons. As they kind of
that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it.
Cool. So it started out way back in the day. A lot of you may or may not know, I grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've been going to DEF CON since I was a young script kiddie. And it started out with just DEF CON. It was a hacker conference that, probably 10 years before I started going, this was just I think it started out as someone's birthday celebration. One of, Dark Tangent, Jeff Moss, the guy who started DEF CON, one of his friends. It was just a celebration for them to get together, and it just kind of happened annually, and it snowballed into this actual con with speakers and things like that. When I started attending DEF CON, I probably wasn't aware of all the cool things happening, but I just went there because it was a hacker party. There was a bunch of hackers there, and you'd find folks who would teach you cool things. You'd learn about the newest exploits in these kind of, very dark corners of Alexis Park or the Rio or whatever was held. But DEF CON, I mean, it's still happening, and it's definitely, we'll talk about DEF CON, how it's changed, but it's now expanded. The reason we call it Hacker Summer Camp is because it is a week or more
Mm.
longer event of many, many cons and many, many activities. We'll just kind of highlight a couple of those.
Yeah,
So,
arguably it's end to end 10 plus days. It's more than a full week
yeah,
because there's trainings and then there's things at the very beginning, things at the very yeah. So it gets close to 2 full weeks.
yeah, because yeah, you're exactly correct. So let's start with the training. So Black Hat will actually have trainings starting the week prior to what we all know as Hacker Summer Camp. They'll have trainings that are actually pretty expensive. I've never done any of them, but I have friends that run a lot of the training. So these are very notable, well-versed in security folks that are teaching you their trade craft, whether it's offensive or defensive security or general kind of security knowledge.
I'll speak to a little bit of the
Mhm.
training there because I
Yeah.
got a little background. I know of one of my team members a couple years ago. We were a shop. They were doing a lot of we were doing a lot of Active Directory work, and I wanted one of my team members not only to go to Black Hat but to learn some specific things around our identity space and our Active Directory
Mhm.
space. And he took a 2 or 3 day course on Active Directory hacking. So it was really focused on how to get a golden Kerberos ticket. So kind of a
Oh,
course
nice.
around how to get into Active Directory and do terrible things while you're in there. And it was a great
Mhm.
class to help him as a defender learn, kind of the offensive techniques. There's that.
That's right.
Another piece, Garrett, I don't know if you know this, but I was involved in creating courses for Black Hat.
I did not know that.
In 2012, 2013, I was doing a lot of Android and mobile forensics and mobile hacking work.
I knew
And
that.
I had actually created a Android forensics course that I was teaching around the U.S. And a team of well-known Android security experts and mobile security experts had put together a 2 day course around mobile security and mobile anti-security. And I was brought in to actually create and teach the Android piece of
Oh,
this
that's super
course.
cool.
So I created the courseware, partnered up with a lot of very cool names in the mobile security space who were very well known. I was the least known of them all, but I was very excited to be part of this team. And then I switched permanent full-time jobs from one company where I was doing a lot of information security work and a different company where I was doing information security work. Well, the company that I switched to really needed me to be home during Hacker Summer Camp, so I couldn't actually attend to deliver the course. So they delivered it on my behalf. But yeah, my name was in the notes of as a contributor to the course. So as you
And
mentioned,
for everyone,
the early parts of Black Hat, like I'm very excited to say I was happily a part of building and helping deliver a course on Android security.
for everyone listening, Sean is being extremely humble. He was actually quite the tour de force in mobile security back in the day. So
Tour de
I completely believe that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, go on.
No, no, you're good. So the first con that happens in Hacker Summer Camp traditionally is B-Sides Las Vegas. And B-Sides, if everyone's not familiar with B-Sides, there are usually B-Sides events in every major city in the United States, abroad. I mean, there's B-Sides, Tel Aviv and B-Sides, I think Dubai. And I mean, should be B-Sides everywhere in every major city around the world. But B-Sides Las Vegas informally kind of serves as like the global B-Sides meetup because it does happen during Hacker Summer Camp. Now it's funny because it does not attract the sheer number of people that like DEF CON attracts. But what I love B-Sides about is it's a very new to security friendly type conference. They've got a lot of contests. They've got a capture the flag called Pros versus Joes, which I got to take part in last year, which was very, very fun. And it kind of allows you to mentor some people, or if you're new to the security space, you can join as a Joe, and you can learn a lot about capture the flags. And we could do a whole show on capture the flags, but essentially it's a simulation, kind of like a blue team, red team exercise where You've got a blue team defending some infrastructure, and a red team constantly attacking that infrastructure. And it's a really fun game. But point I'm making is it's very approachable. The talks are usually a little bit more towards the general nature of security. Very, very good for new people in the industry to join. And the company that I work for, we sponsored the event this year, and we had a little booth set up. So I was a booth babe this year, and we
Nice.
created our own Capture the Flag, which is a Cypher Jeopardy style Capture the Flag that, again, I don't want to say I watered it down, but I made it very approachable for people to actually complete that. And a lot of people had a lot of fun. A lot of people got stumped and would come up to the booth and ask me for hints. And as a prudent security researcher, I would tell them to try harder.
Try harder. I
there
think
are
about
there are no hints. I'm sorry.
as far as B-Sides Las Vegas goes. I've attended it twice, and if I think about it from a size perspective, I think it's somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 people or so
Mhm.
go to B-Sides. Yeah, there's your badge, right? It's a coin.
Yep.
It's a coin, and every year it's always
It's a chip.
yeah, it's actually a chip, right? Vegas
Yeah.
chip.
It's a poker chip.
On a lanyard, right? And that's what they've, as far as I've always seen, that's what they've always used.
That's what they've done for a very long time.
And so
Yeah.
there's only 2 to 3,000 people. Attendance sells out quick because sometimes it's free or cheap to get in, but you need to you got to figure out how to get access to it because it sells out quick. It's relatively inexpensive.
Yep.
It's compared to the other events, it's small. It's in from what I've seen,
off-strip casino.
An off-strip casino, smaller, kind of in the ballroom, and then breakout rooms, kind of off the ballroom. So one of the things, as Gary, as you described it, it's approachable because it's not overwhelming.
Right.
You can get to all the rooms pretty quickly. You can see all the vendors that are set up, and folks there are definitely friendly and welcoming. I actually had a couple of team members of mine from one of the companies I worked with in the past go in there, and it was kind of like their first time presenting at a big conference, right? And they proposed a talk, it got accepted, and they were talking about different areas around kind of like governance of security versus kind of hands-on hacking. So like they all different types of talks are welcome there.
Yeah, and you made a really good point. It's a lot more centralized than like DEF CON has been in the past, which we'll talk about DEF CON being centralized this year. But yeah, it's got a focus on, getting people jobs. There's an area called the hire ground, which allows you to kind of, visit folks that might be hiring for security jobs. And like you said, the talk submission, it's a lot easier to get a talk in there. And, kind of if you're interested in doing security style presentations, that's a great way to kind of wade in and get your feet wet on that.
We did that, the higher ground piece in the past. So I'd worked at a company called Rapid7. Some folks might know. And so we had, we were one of the supporters of the whole event. And we had a booth there similar to yours as well. But part of higher ground, like we made sure that our job openings were in there. And I went and participated and met with some folks who were looking for work and, got to know them, which, led to great conversations, whether they came on board or not. Not necessarily always the focus, but like great conversations maybe helped redirect folks to roles that I heard of elsewhere in industry. So great place to go if you're looking for jobs.
And just to reiterate the plug, if you're interested in competing in a, blue team, red team type capture the flag, that pros versus Joes, which I imagine will keep going on. It's been going on for quite a while now. I'd recommend applying for that and trying to get into that because it's a great experience.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. So moving on, after B-Sides is Black Hat. Now, the Black Hat conference was actually born from the DEF CON founder because, and again, if I get this wrong, apologies, but as I see it, a lot of like vendors and sponsors wanted to kind of get in on the DEF CON, crowd. And we were always very much like, absolutely not. Like, that's not what DEF CON's for. So I believe Black Hat was born out of the need for a more sponsor focused attendance that dealt with more of the business of security rather than the hands-on, hacking, exploitation, defense, and stuff like that. So the Black Hat conference is usually, excluding the trainings, it's like 2 or 3 days. Shawn, you actually went for the full briefings this year. I only attended I only attended and did the business hall, but that in and of itself, its own thing. So you want to tell the folks a little bit about Black Hat and kind of
Yeah, I
how
think
your experience was?
I think so. I've been going to Black Hat pretty much every year since for the better part of the last 11, 12 years. Minus a few years thanks to COVID messing everything up. I do think of Black Hat as kind of the professional hacker conference, right? It's a little bit more professional, a little bit more corporate focused than kind of a hacker con. So, like a little bit more focused than BSides, and we'll get into DEF CON after as well. But it's made up of a bunch of different things. First of all, from a size perspective, comparing it to what we just talked about with BSides, Black Hat has about 15,000 to 20,000 people attending, where, again, BSides had 2,000 to 3,000. So massive size difference between the two conferences. So yeah, there's trainings at the beginning, very, very technical 2-day, 3-day training courses, which are separate fee in their own right. And then the actual Black Hat conference has 2 different entrance passes, one known as the Business Hall Pass and one known as the Briefings Pass. And they're different dollar amounts because Black Hat is not free and not cheap. Very important to highlight that. It is I won't say it because I don't know for sure. I won't say it is the most expensive cybersecurity conference you can attend, but it's got to be up there with like the top 2 or 3.
It's what, $2,500 for the full pass?
I think $2,500 for the full pass, $750 for the briefing, $750 for the briefings pass in the
business hall.
Yeah, the briefings, which are the presentations, $2,500. That gives you the see all the vendors, go to all the talks. If you wanted to go to one of the specialized trainings, they're $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 a piece. If you just wanted to get in to see all the vendors and the booths and all the cool, sales things, that's a $750 ticket to get into that.
Right.
So not a cheap thing to get into, but there's so much that you get in this compact 2-day experience. So if we talk about the briefings first, which is the full ticket. Basically, you have about 6 or 7 tracks of talks that you can plan out. So the challenge is you have 2 days, and you have 7 different concurrent tracks of, say, 20 to 40-minute talks. Even though we said this is a professional, kind of corporate-focused event, some of the topics are focused on your cybersecurity leaders, kind of the business, maybe the governance piece of it, kind of the leadership piece of it. But a lot of the talks are actual technical folks, hackers, showing off how they exploited things and how they broke things and, good demonstrations. And other folks are deep technical, talking about security research they've conducted and how they, identified weaknesses and vulnerabilities, created exploits, worked with the vendor to disclose those and get things patched. So the talks are all across the board, and they're in just about every area of technology and cyber that you can think of. But the challenge is 7 tracks, all going concurrently. You have about probably 4 to 5 talks per track per day, and so. And the location of this is at one end of the strip in a single hotel in 3 different stories. So you have 3 floors, by way of stairs and escalators, to get through all these talks. And it's just a massive amount of opportunity to sit and learn, take notes, and then, ponder how you might be able to utilize this information that you learned when you get back to reality.
That's right.
Yeah. And that, I would say this year, so this was actually my first year going to the Black Hat briefings since COVID. So my first time since 2019. And my sense was, I don't know how the last few years, well, I've paid attention offline. I would say this year's briefings were in line with what things were in 2019, which is pretty huge. A massive amount of people attending, excellent speakers, great technical folks. And if I think about some of the briefings that stood out, there were folks focused on, and again, I'm going to talk about the ones that I saw that I thought were valuable to my life. Microsoft Copilot is probably one of the hottest technologies right now, and Microsoft Copilot is less than 12 months old. That's a crazy thing to think about. Like, we're talking about it, we read about it a lot. It is less than a year old. And so several of the talks were around how Microsoft is pushing this technology as their, AI technology of the future that is embedded in nearly every piece of every Microsoft product. And
Yep.
so the research talks that were there were, finding the weaknesses and vulnerabilities in all of these pieces of Copilot, and then working with Microsoft to get those addressed. They were very thoughtful in how they presented, because they only disclosed the weaknesses and vulnerabilities that they found and exploited after they worked with Microsoft, and Microsoft had put fixes in place. And they even said, coming soon, but we won't talk about it today, are some things that we're still working with Microsoft. So we don't want to, we don't want to drop a 0 day on the world. We want to be, thoughtful around this. Excellent.
That's the concept of responsible disclosure. You don't want to just release the stuff out in the wild without letting the vendor have a chance to patch it. But I'm of the opinion that if you contact the vendor, you say, "Hey, I have this, I want to work with you on a responsible disclosure," and they tell you to kick rocks, all's fair.
And I've seen that at Black Hat happen. I've seen that at Black Hat. Other things that I think really stood out: AWS security. Researchers there talking about how they're utilizing public GitHub to find AWS accounts and find like S3 bucket names. And then that in itself isn't an attack, but just the fact that people are storing these names publicly in GitHub, and software developers often saying, well, that's not a secret. That, the S3 bucket name isn't a secret. And the attacker, the researcher, says, well, I mean, if I get that piece of data, I can then abstract pieces of that ID to then fill into where I find a weakness elsewhere. So it's a piece of the attack chain. And so they kind of walked through several different areas in AWS where by just finding an S3 bucket name publicly available in anyone's free public GitHub, they were able to start conducting potential attacks on that. And of course,
I think that's a legitimate use of AI. Like, I'm not on the AI train if that's the hottest thing out there, but like use AI to go parse through a bunch of GitHub repos to find, S3 bucket addresses. I mean, that's a great offensive security strategy.
Yeah. One of the other talks, just I like to kind of like give people a picture of like, what are the talks like? So one other one was a couple hackers from, I think, Finland, who came in and said, hey, we wanted to pretend that we were, I'm going to make this up because I kind of forget the piece, but like we're a hospital. We're going to pretend we're a hospital, and we're going to create a spoofed URL that looks like the hospital name. We're going to change some of the characters a little bit. And then next thing you know, we created an email intake form. So if someone fat fingers the name of the hospital name when they're sending an email, he says, next thing you know, we're collecting PII on thousands of patients just to see if we could. And they started walking through it. And then they started talking about how they created an open source tool to be able to create spoofed URLs. So, pick, say, Microsoft.com, their tool, say, here's like 50 URLs you could purchase that are close to Microsoft.com if you want to start an attack path. And they said, here's the link to our, free open source tool. So even though we say this is the professional corporate-based conference, the talks go all over the place, and I love when I see the real hackers showing off their interesting things. So those are a few of the talks that I saw that I took away from that I thought were really interesting, and I might be able to take some notes back to help other folks learn in their career.
Well, didn't those two guys that you may or may not know give their meat pistol talk at Black Hat before they did it at DEF CON? They tried to?
There were two guys who were making their own version of Metasploit, I believe. I think they were
sort of. Yeah.
Sort of, right? Yeah. They were pen testers at a big enterprise software company, not necessarily a security company, but pen testers at a big corporate enterprise security company. They had a talk that they wanted to give at Black Hat. They didn't necessarily get corporate approval to give the talk, or did they? That's the question.
Right.
They didn't, or they did.
Maybe they did.
Just before they went on stage to give their talk, their boss's boss showed up on the side of the stage and said, "Don't give this talk. I forbid you to give this talk." And they're like, "We're about to go on stage." Yeah, don't give the talk. They went on stage. They gave the talk. They were soon no longer employed by this enterprise software company.
They were fired immediately after that. So yeah, point being, you can still find some pretty heavy talks at Black Hat. It's not all just, CISSP type stuff.
Yep. The CISSP stuff is there, right? So it's a little bit of it all.
It is. You can learn how to manage your security team with efficiency and numbers and
So
things.
those are the briefings, and then let's talk the business hall a little bit. The business hall is
Yep.
like the vendor thing, the place where you go and see all the. Garrett, you said booth babes. Booth babes is generally, I'm going to talk about something here, but it was generally a thing of the past in the Black Hat world. I think the hacker community is very progressive and is very thoughtful about exploiting people, right? So
Yeah.
we make
Yeah.
jokes about booth babes, but it's generally us nerds who are working the booths.
Well,
But
my first year actually working a booth at Black Hat was I think the first year where they forbid booth babes, which to be clear, there were men and women,
mhm,
just, very good looking humans that would attract people to come in to talk about the software. And of course, we in the hacker community were like, well, this is BS, and you're subjugating. It was women primarily is
yep.
were the ones that are being taken advantage of. So thankfully, yes, our culture is very progressive, and we put a stop to that until this year.
Until this year, there's a thing. I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I want to finish the business hall because the thing I'm going to talk about actually isn't business hall related.
Right, right.
It's things that are not on the official agenda. Um, so the business halls where all the vendors are, all the where the marketing teams of all the cybersecurity and product security vendors just spend absurd amount of money to have these beautiful booths and give away cool swag and like with the
And
t-shirts
let's
we're wearing
quantify that. This is hundreds of thousands of dollars that
per
are
company
spent on these booths
per
per
company
company.
per company.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pay lots of money to have a booth at the entry, at the front where people come in. They pay lots of money for booths that can go all the way to the ceiling or can go very
Mhm.
wide. So like they pay by the square foot.
Or have very elaborate
Yeah.
themes. Like I worked at a company where we had like an alien theme, and
Mm.
like one of our booths was crop circles where we had actual stalks of wheat like going out from the floor. It was
I
bizarre
know, I
how
know,
much money
I
we would
know that
spend.
booth. I know the booth you're talking about. So the business hall is cool, right? Even though it's an expensive ticket, one thing that I find really nice. So again, talking to the existing and aspiring cybersecurity leaders, something that is very cool about the Black Hat Business Hall, and this is also similar for other conferences, and we'll talk about other conferences another day. But for this one specifically, you don't have time as a cybersecurity leader to read all your emails and to answer all your phone calls of all these sales
Mhm.
account executives and sales engineers at security product companies, security service companies trying to get your attention. But one thing is very cool about Black Hat is to be able to go through the business hall and learn who who are the big leaders in the space. But usually the biggest booth demonstrates the biggest leaders in the space, and then
That's right.
who are the up and comers. There's a whole
Right.
section of just startups with really small booths or the up and comers to be able to go see what are the common products, what are the repeated products, what are the services that are out there, what are the things that maybe me as a CISO, I wasn't even thinking about because I have my few areas of expertise, but you can't know everything as a CISO, as a
Mhm.
security leader. So being able to spend those couple days getting to know folks in the business hall, meeting, learning, understanding what's out there, and to be able to have almost like these speed dates by going booth to
I
booth
was
and,
just
and
about to say
having
that. It's like speed dating.
and
Yeah.
you limit yourself. Like I'm going to talk to these people for 3 minutes and move to the next booth, and then
Mhm.
maybe I'll get a T-shirt. But to me, that's a huge value. Kind of use that for my shopping to see what's out there. I did that when I
Right.
first started in this space, and I still do it. If I think about the first time I went to Black Hat, I was running a security operations org, and I knew that I needed to buy a SIM. My company didn't have a SIM. Previously, didn't have a security operations function.
Yep.
I wouldn't say I was brand new to the space, but I had not implemented SIM tools before. So I thought, hey, why don't I use my time at Black Hat to learn the key players out there? And then my takeaway is, as I come back, I've got, oh, good, I have my list of 8 folks that I want to contact after this event to say, hey, let's talk more about what you do and see if it fits our needs.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And I've done the same. It's a great way because, like you said, you just can't get through that mountain of emails that they're always sending you. So you kind of, and those booths definitely have a purpose because, like you said, the bigger and more elaborate ones, they kind of attract you. And while I have never been one of those people, there is tons of swag to be given away. In the past, I've seen lightsabers, fidget spinners, remote control toys, all types of crap, and figurines and. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Did you get that this year? You're such a nerd. I love it. But yeah, I mean, it's, I've worked, as Sean and I mentioned, I've worked at several security vendors and have manned many of those booths, and they are very, very effective in kind of delivering that value prop. So I mean, again, if you're shopping for security solutions, it's a great thing. Now, I will also mention, and this kind of bleeds into DEF CON, but one of the other aspects of Hacker Summer Camp that maybe not a lot of people understand is that there are tons of happy hours and private parties and even like non-private parties that you can kind of weasel your way into that sure offers you a great opportunity to get some free food and drinks, but more importantly, you get to meet some of the most interesting and captivating people in the industry. I have made connections that have lasted over the past couple decades based on, meeting someone at a rando party. Like I'll brag for a second. Actually, I won't show you the badge because I don't want this one to get out. But I go to a party every year, put on by one of the major software vendors out there, and it's a focus on their security research community. And I mean, I have learned more at that party about some of the upcoming threats, ways to defend against those threats, secure, research projects that are ongoing. I've learned more at that party than I have going to any talks at Black Hat or DEF CON. And again, that is something that I would highly encourage that you seek out, especially if you have a favorite vendor that you work with. Maybe you have a SIM tool that you absolutely love. See if they're throwing a party. Because again, you can get there and you can meet the folks that maybe run their product org, maybe engineer the product. You can get insight. You can pepper them with questions about use, maybe ask them to, include some feature set. And as somebody who works at a software company today, I'm like, oh God, that's like my worst nightmare.
Mhm.
But truly, if you're a fervent user of this stuff, getting in good with those people that make the product, it's a great relationship to have, especially if you plan on, using those tools and into the future.
Totally agree. So yeah, this is the official, unofficial part of Black Hat where it's not on the
That's right.
agenda, but Black Hat does post some of this on their official website. Like, hey, here's some parties that you might want or events you may want to go to. And then
Hmm.
there are others that are not publicly posted and you got to do your own little hunting to find them.
That's right.
But I would say the stuff that is not on the official agenda is where I've found, even though I'm talking about all the value from the talks in the business hall, it's these events that I've found the most value.
Absolutely.
Having breakfast with, product engineering folks for a product company and, them
Hmm.
learning my problems and my challenges. So now they're hearing direct from a potential customer or an existing customer.
That's
And
right.
then me getting, building some relationships with their internal folks. So then we can have possibly build a long-term like working business relationship
Right.
where I could be that customer advisor in a sense, helping provide feedback for where their product is headed. To
Now I
to
oh,
going
sorry, go
to
ahead.
to going to events where they are led by, in some cases, security recruiting folks. And no, I may
Hmm.
not be looking for a job, but maybe you are, right? And so you can get into these events and you can meet some of the recruiting folks, and you kind of have a beverage, have a conversation, and talk with folks in industry, and if you are like Garrett or I, and know some faces in the industry, maybe you haven't met everyone. Next thing you know, like, oh, I know this person standing right next to me. We haven't met before. Well, there's only a small group of here. Let me go have a conversation with this person, and
Yep.
then by the end of that conversation, this is what happens for me 9 out of 10 times. By the end of that conversation is, hey, can you bring up your LinkedIn QR code? Let's connect on LinkedIn, and then we'll follow up
Absolutely.
from a DM later on, and then we'll share phone numbers and get to know each other. And Garrett, to your point of building multi-decade relationships, same here. And it is those after hour events where I am most fortunate that I've been at this event to meet some folks and build relationships that have helped from a business perspective, from a career perspective, from a personal perspective. And the funny thing is, let's talk cost. Free. You just have to be in
Free.
Vegas. You just need
Free.
to be in
Just be in
Vegas and
Vegas.
sign up ahead of time. Wherever their website is for the signing up for the parties.
Now, one thing I will mention is a lot of the parties that we're talking about now, they may require that you have a black hat badge. Like that is one of the
Mm.
stipulations. Is some of those parties that are more anonymous of like, you can join them because you have a black hat badge. You usually have to have
Good.
those. I want to mention though that there there is a side of the parties that I don't really partake in anymore, but they are fun and they are valuable if you just want to blow off some steam. But they're probably not going to be the best arena for intimate talks with your favorite security researcher. And those are the parties that the company that Sean and I used to work for used to throw. And there are still companies that throw these types of parties these days, but we're talking about the ones where they rent out the hottest dance club in Vegas and they just throw this massive party, rent out the whole thing, and it's music louder than you can talk and just drinks flowing
Open bar,
everywhere.
appetizers all
Open
night long.
oh
Yes. Yeah.
oh my. Yeah, yeah. And again, like I sound so old saying this, but maybe that's for folks that want to stay out all night and really, get going. That's fine. But I would recommend that if you're looking to make these decades long connections, you aim for the maybe middle of the road
It's true.
cocktail receptions
I
with
like making a
and
joke as you described this. I'm like, one of my favorite things I went to at a Black Hat a few years ago was the fact that a company, I'm just going to leave their name off it, but a company hired Alice in Chains to play at the House of Blues and let a few hundred people in. And I think right over here, like over to my side, I have 3 guitar picks from Jerry Cantrell, who handed them to me at the end of his
That's
set
amazing.
because it was
Yes.
such a small thing. Now, did I learn anything about the company and the product that they had? No,
No,
but Jerry
no.
Cantrell of Alice in Chains handed me 3 of his guitar picks.
hmm Well, you remember a couple years ago at RSA, a vendor who shall remain nameless hired Incubus to play a show, and I'm just like, what? And again, same thing. Like you're just feet away from these people. It's pretty. I mean, again, there's some cool
Yep.
opportunities to do that, but again, highly recommend these parties for multiple reasons. I mean, again, the networking is phenomenal, and you're going to get to have conversations with some of the coolest people in the industry. They're fun, and as a side benefit, you can eat and drink for free if you
Yep.
plan out your party schedule well in advance.
Yeah, I didn't realize I've never been to Black Hat without a badge. I've always had some badge. So as I mentioned,
Yeah.
like, you can get into these for free. I'm glad that some of them are saying, hey, you can sign up for our party, but please show me your Black Hat badge before you come in, to make sure that there's some type of quality control.
Whatever you do, though, do not show up to Vegas with a portable printer and get a picture of one of those black hat badges and then just make your own in Photoshop and then print that out. Definitely don't do that because the reason is your printable version of that badge is probably going to look exactly like the official badge and it will work anywhere. So definitely just
Don't
don't do that.
don't do
Whatever you
that.
do,
Don't do
don't
that.
do that.
Don't do that. One of the events this year, and then I think we'll wrap up Black Hat and we'll move on to DEF CON. One of the events
Yeah.
this year, we were talking about booth babes and how they have gone away. I won't have it on the Twitch screen, but I'll put it, I'll share a little bit on it when we edit for YouTube. One of the preeminent information security vendors that is very well known for physical firewall technology and other types of technology.
Yes.
They had a party on like night 1 or night 2 of Black Hat, and it was an intimate party. It was one of these smaller parties at a lounge where you'd sign up and go in. And their welcoming into the party were these human lamps, lights, human lamps, and
Please explain that a little bit more in detail
yes,
of how awful this
human
was.
lamps. So you can picture a person with a lampshade on the top of their head, and then the company name going across the top of the lampshade. So you can picture it's like lampshade. The lampshade itself covered all of the face except maybe down to the mouth. So you could see no eyes, you could see no facial expression, but the lamp post
Definitely wasn't a COVID mask.
no. And these aren't mannequins; these are people. These are actual people, and the people were women in like very tight-fitting black dresses, standing there wearing these lampshades, which also had a light bulb on the inside, so it kind of lit up. So if you picture this, as we said, our industry got out of the exploitation business. Well, this was their kind of like welcome to our party event. So somehow, somewhere, someone thought this was a really neat, cool idea to have these women kind of like, somewhat underdressed, but in a sense, like just again, exploited, wearing a lampshade with a company's name all over it, welcoming folks to the party. Garrett, did you see this?
Yes, they were very traditionally beautiful women
Yes.
dressed in very seductive evening wear. And here's the deal. And again, I try not to use any kind of profanity on this show. So I'll just say that this is the biggest F up that I have seen from a vendor in a very long time. Because here's the deal. I think the human body is beautiful. I think it used in certain ways is very creative, but like, why would you do this with two? Why would you have just women up there? Like, if you really wanted to do this, have a woman and a man. Even then, it's still
Hmm.
kind of creepy, but doing this with just two women just really makes you look like the creep fest of the century. And no matter what I think, the industry's reaction was very much just like, what in the ever-loving F are you thinking of doing this? Because again, it's setting us back quite a bit in the fact that we try to be very inclusive. I'm a girl dad. I won't out you being a girl dad as well, but you are.
But I am.
But you are, and so I feel very strongly about inclusion in engineering and technology of women because historically it hasn't been so. And when you have booth babes in the booth and you have things like this that appear, it just sets you back so many years and it's just so gross to look at. But, from a macro standpoint, I just look at this, I'm like, had you just had a man and a woman there, it wouldn't have been as bad. Maybe it also still would have had a little bit of a weird portrayal because it's still kind of booth babe-ish, but
Hmm.
it really, really looked like this giant chauvinist like party, like, check out our fixtures that we have greeting you at the party. And it was very stupid.
Yeah, it was the
Very,
one
very
thing.
stupid.
Jay Reze is hanging out with us in chat, who has specifically said definitely not Palo Alto.
Yeah, it
And
definitely was not Palo Alto Networks combined with some other
yeah,
cyber guild, I
yeah,
think.
we'll
But
have
yeah, it
yeah.
definitely
Well,
was.
the lampshade did say Palo Alto right on the
Oh,
lampshade.
that's
Which, yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
it did
Maybe it was Palo Alto
did
then.
have the lampshade. But yeah, it major backlash for the leadership community. Cyber leaders, chiming in all over LinkedIn and other socials around, how this is not okay in today's day and age, and really kind of putting Palo all the way up to the CEO, in a corner where they are attempting to kind of correct for their mistakes there. So is what it is.
But even then, like if you saw the response, like I'm just gonna call him out. Like it was a BS response. It was not an apology. It was just very much like a sorry that you felt this way. Or at least the initial response was. I don't know if they walked that back a little bit, but for a company that big, which by the way, I'm a Palo Alto alum. I worked there for like 2 months. I'm very shocked that that even made it out to get their name slapped on there.
Yeah.
Because like surely someone had to okay putting their name on a lampshade because then they'd be like, well, what are these lampshades being used for? Oh, we're putting them on the heads of scantily dressed women. They're like, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Yeah,
It's bizarre. All
yeah,
right,
yeah. Anyways, we're done there. Did we cover enough of
done
Black
with
Hat?
Black Hat.
We went deep with Black Hat. Let's talk a little bit about DEF CON before we run
Okay.
out of time today.
Yes, because we're about to. So DEF CON is the reason that I personally go to Hacker Summer Camp. It is something that, like I said, I've been going since I was a script kiddie, right out of, actually, I think I still was in high school the first time I went. And that's the place to be if you're interested in offensive security, if you're interested, I mean, really any type of security that's hands-on and technical, this is where you're going to get the really cool talks. This is where you're going to get zero-day exploit talks. You're going to hear about new surveillance techniques, a lot of blowing the doors off, some government spying type stuff happens there. You meet a lot of amazing people. The thing that I don't like so much about DEF CON, though, is how absolutely gigantic it's become. Because it used to be, even 10 years ago, was kind of small. I mean, it was still a lot of people, but you could get to any of the talks that you wanted to. You could pretty much go to any of the workshops if you wanted to go, hit five of the different workshops in the villages and stuff. You could do that. But now today, like you have to be very, very specific of the talk you want to go to, the village you want to go to, because you're going to stand in these lines forever to get into these talks. We even colloquially call it line con because, it's part of the experience, which again, line con used to just be for the badges because back in the day, in fact, up until not too long ago, it was cash only. Like there's no registration. You just showed up with cash and you bought a badge. So you'd have to wait in this long line. And that's where I met a lot of my long lasting friendships was in line con because you're staying there for hours and you're shooting the breeze with folks and that's always been my favorite experience. But yeah, this year it was much different. I actually I got sick. I got the con flu, and I
Oh
didn't
no.
get to attend the past couple days, the last couple days of DEF CON. But it was much different this year. It was all encompassed in one area. It was in the Las Vegas Convention Center, which had never been before. A little
Mm.
backstory
Yeah.
about that is, sorry, you're going to say
No,
something, Sean?
it used to be in a different hotel or a couple hotels far away from Black Hat, but I didn't realize it was in the conference center this year.
Yep. So historically, I mean, it started out as like being in the Alexis Park, which if you've ever been to Vegas and been to Alexis Park, that's the place where you drive by and you're like, oh, I bet you could get stabbed hanging out there. Well, definitely. It evolved into like it went to the Rio one year. I think it was at the Riviera one year. In the past couple of years, it's been spread across several casinos that were Caesar's
Mm.
entertainment casinos, like Caesar's Palace, the Paris, Bally's. It doesn't matter what the other ones were,
Yeah.
but when Caesars opened their convention center, they moved the bulk of DEF CON to that. I was also at the Flamingo. I remember a couple of talks with the Flamingo. Um, but then this year, Caesars like pulled the rug out from under DEF CON, like 6 or 7 months before DEF CON and said, hey, we're actually not going to let you have the conference here this year. And this was like, I'm sure tons of breach of contract type stuff,
Mm.
but they were still just like, man, forget about it.
You think after
You
like
know,
20 something years, they're sick of like having their networks taken over or elevators, jammed or
which is so dumb because like historically, like you always the undercurrent was you never messed with the casino. Like
yeah.
okay, go hack all the stuff you want, but like don't actually mess with the casino. But a lot of people ruin that for folks. I personally believe this was on the heels of the double whammy that we saw last year between Caesars and MGM, those two giant hacks that
Mm.
happened that I personally don't believe were related to the DEF CON attendees, but who knows? They could have been, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could spend hours talking about DEF CON. We don't have enough time for that, but like we would see stuff like, and we even saw it this year, unfortunately, forced room inspections of people looking for, I don't know what they were looking for, like soldering irons. Like, I don't know why that
Hacking
uses
paraphernalia.
hacking paraphernalia, but like we even saw that this year at Resorts World, there were some folks that were given notices that their rooms had been searched without their permission, which I don't agree with.
And that's occurred in the
Um,
past. That's not new. That's we've seen this in years past.
We've seen that in years past, yeah, but it happened again this year, despite there not being any connection to the casino and the place where DEF
Mm.
CON was hosted. But for the one day that I did get to check out DEF CON, it was really cool having everything in one place. I actually got into a couple of the talks that I wanted to fairly easily, just because there was so much room. It didn't feel as cramped. It didn't feel like you're waiting for hours in lines, except for the merch line, which I'm a firm believer of like, why would you buy DEF CON merch? Like, I don't want to, I mean, again, I'll support DEF CON in any way I can, but like, I'm not going to be the guy that's broadcasting to the world that,
Yeah.
black hat hacker.
Yep. Yeah. I went to the Black Hat merch room, which plenty space. Like I felt comfortable going. I went on day one, but I
Yeah,
bought socks and do I have it?
nice.
Oh, in the,
Which that's my favorite
yeah.
InfoSec con swag, by the way. If you're a vendor and you're listening, make socks. Like
Yeah.
that's the best thing you could make.
And then I bought since we're talking about this, I got this. I think will even kind of the wrapper here. Yeah, this was the Black Hat coin. I got the Black Hat
Oh, that's cool.
coin.
That's
So
very cool.
um, it's funny. The reason I got the Black Hat coin is I'm not going to out this person, even though I almost just did. A very, very well-known OG hacker, like one of maybe someone who testified in front of Congress way back in the day as like an OG
Uh-huh.
hacker, was like, I
Oh,
want the
I know who
coin.
that is.
I want the coin. I'm like, oh, you're getting the coin? He's like, yeah, I'm getting the coin. I'm like, well, if you're getting the coin, I'm getting the coin.
Mhm.
We were in the store.
I
We were in
know,
the store at the same time. Didn't
I know
even joke about
exactly who you're talking about, actually.
it. So that was very cool.
That's very cool. Yeah, go ahead.
So DEF CON, right? So we were talking about size wise. DEF CON is like upwards to like 25, 30,000 people. That's kind of what I remember.
Which is crazy. Like it's crazy that it attracts so many people.
Yeah.
I think
I have never actually set foot in DEF CON. There was a project I was working on a few years back. It was going to be in the Black Hat Arsenal. We didn't even talk about the Black Hat Arsenal. This is where like a lot of like early developers want to show off like their early development things, maybe open source developers, just kind of at home hackers. I was working on an iOS security thing with a colleague of mine, and we were showing it off in the Black Hat Arsenal. And then he was going to take that to DEF CON. I forget what the thing is over in DEF CON. He was going to show it off there as well, and I had to go home, so I wasn't able to participate. But so I've never actually set foot in DEF CON for usually scheduling reasons, because it takes place usually a weekend or toward the end of week in August, where oftentimes I'd rather be on a beach.
Yep.
That's
I
all.
mean, you definitely have to give up a weekend to go to DEF CON.
Yeah.
Cool. The other thing I'll mention is challenges within DEF CON. Probably my favorite part of DEF CON are all the different challenges, and there's all types of hacking challenges. There, of course, are tons of CTFs. I mean, as you know, represented by the Red Team Village. There are physical, penetration testing challenges like lock picking and basically breaking and entering, physical type manipulation. There are even, I'll kind of show this off. There are badges like this one that was produced by a DC or a DEF CON group out of Virginia, where that badge in and of itself was its own challenge. And there are other groups out there that do that as well, to where you have to, serial into the badge and like find some flags within the badge.
It's an analog badge, which is
that's cool.
some type of a decoder ring, and on the back it kind of helps you kind of get into like figuring out what the decode is. But yeah,
that's actually really cool. Yeah. And that's probably my favorite part about DEF challenges, because I love ciphers, and I mean, obviously I created one for the company I work with this year. I love the challenges, and I love the different groups, and it seems like every village, and again, I had money to burn to go buy all these cool badges in the villages, but I didn't get to them. But each village will usually have like their own kind of cool badge and stuff like that.
I think I'll make sure next year. I've said this for the pre-COVID, and I said that for the years prior. I'm like, I need to make sure I save time to go to DEF CON. So I'm saying it for next year.
We should plan on it next year. I think it'd be really fun, and I think I could probably show you a good time while we're there.
Yeah. I keep finding like little pieces of swag that I picked up. Here's one from a company called Huntress. You may be familiar with.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I got a sticker from them. And anyways, in upcoming episodes, we'll be, who are you wearing? Will likely be lots of Black Hat collected swag between the two of us. What else do we need to cover? Did we cover all the things we needed to cover here today?
The only other thing that I'll say is that in addition to those three main components that we talked about, there are several other cons and gatherings that are scattered across Hacker Summer Camp. I mean, there is QueerCon for our LGBTQIA plus members. There's GothCon. That's Sean's favorite, con for sure. There's Blanket Fort Con, where you show up in your PJs and you make a blanket fort.
I really need to find out where that is.
I mean, I can help you find Blanket Fort Con. There are secret cons that we just won't talk about, but those happen as well. There's Vet Con, which contrary to popular belief, it's not for veterinarians. It's for veterans of military service. But yeah, the point I'm making is there is so much stuff to do that week. There's no chance that you're going to get to all of it. You really have to pick and choose what you want to attend and what you want to check out. But I think that if you're interested in security in any way, shape, or fashion, you're going to find some really fun stuff to do. You're going to find some folks that will be able to share some amazing knowledge with you to expand your own security horizons. I mean, I've been in the industry for 580 years now, and I still learn stuff every single time I go. Yeah. So I recommend anyone that can do it. And if you can get your company to pay for it, try to do that as well, because and that's not a surreptitious, try to sneak that in. I firmly believe in investing in your employees, and you can very easily make a case that this is going to improve you as a security professional by going to this conference.
No doubt. One of the, you had mentioned some of these other cons. One that's not even officially a con, but people often talk about LobbyCon, which as you get to know folks out in industry, you can just schedule time saying, hey, I'm going to be in Vegas for this event. Will you be there as well? Great. Let's meet up at the Starbucks and grab a coffee, or let's go, let's go to a lounge and grab a beverage, and we can talk about our business, right? So LobbyCon to me is also one of my favorite cons of this event. And I end up spending a lot of my Vegas time doing LobbyCon, right? Just meeting up with folks who I don't get the opportunity to meet in person because we live on email and Zoom. We make that opportunity to get together in person.
One of my favorite things that happened this year was I was meeting up with a former boss of mine in a bar in a lobby of a hotel. And I'm sitting there and he said, "Hey, you want me to grab you a drink?" I said, "Yeah, I'll take a gin and tonic," which if you ever run into me, that's my drink. I love a good gin and tonic.
Noted.
And as he walks away to go get the drink, some random guy that's sitting on the couch right next to me goes, gin and tonic. It must be you, Garrett." And I turn around and I look to see this person. And this is someone who I've actually seen somewhat in recent years, but I've known this dude for almost 20 years. And like, I hadn't seen him in forever. The fact that he was even at this conference was kind of a surprise to me for reasons that I won't get into, but like one of my favorite people ever just happened to be sitting on the couch in this lobby as I met up with another friend of mine. So again, I got to see him and shoot the breeze with him for a little bit. So you run into people you haven't seen in forever, you make new connections. And truly, I think that's what the security community is all about, because we are such a small community that this type of networking and physical proximity really helps us strengthen and develop new bonds.
I love it. All right, it is time for us to wrap up. This has been my Hacker Summer Camp recap, and I think we did it justice this year, Garrett. I think we did. All right, thank you everybody for listening and watching. I'm Sean Valley. I'm the creator of the show and the music here on Cybersecurity Growth. You can check us out at cybersecuritygrowth.com. You can locate all the shows at cybersecuritygrowth.com/blog. You can find me online at most social places under @SeanValley or @CybersecurityGrowth, even TikTok. If you like the show, please tell your friends. If you hate it, please tell all your hacker buddies. If you could like and subscribe, maybe click the 5-star, the thumbs up button, leave a review saying, "Great show. I learned how to eat and drink for free when I'm in Vegas during Hacker Summer Camp." That would be fantastic. I know Garrett doesn't do much of the social media, so Garrett, where can people catch you?
You can catch me at your local HackerCon, probably eating free food and drink at sponsored by people who don't put booth babes out with lampshades on their head.
It sounds about right. What I didn't know is I thought Garrett was a peanut butter whiskey guy, and I didn't get him a gin and tonic this year, and I blew it, and our friendship is in the toilet from now on.
You are dead to me forever, Sean. How dare you?
I'll work on it for next year. All right, so this week we covered my Hacker Summer Camp recap. We do plan to be back the next time we get together. We will finish our security awareness training session that we started a couple weeks back. We'll do part 2 of that and wrap that up. And we got a whole bunch more shows lined up for the future. We are generally live on Twitch every other week, Fridays at approximately 1:30 p.m. Eastern, approximately 10:30 a.m. Pacific, or 6:30 p.m. GMT, something like that. And we are usually in your pod feeds and YouTube feeds a few days later. So our goal is to see you again very soon. We'll say that. And thanks, everybody. Bye for now.
Cool. Thanks so much. Take care.